Next up, we've got Caio Borralho taking on Abus Magomedov. And listen, I picked Abus Magomedov to beat Sean Strickland. So, I looked pretty stupid there, right? But the reason I thought so was what we saw in round one. I just felt like he was going to come out there, be very aggressive, blast Sean with kicks in the face, and get after him with the hands. And he was landing a lot. But then he starts going for takedowns. And by the end of the first round, I'm like, man, this guy is literally gassing out in the first round. And he's been a guy that has been spotty. He's lost as a big favorite before. And he's also just not had the cardio to go. He's not had the chin to endure some big shots at times in his career, despite otherwise having a good record. When he's fought step ups in competition, he just hasn't really looked like the best of all worlds, right? Caio Borralho has been a absolute money train for me. A guy I've been betting since the Contender Series, bet him by knockout against Jesse Murray, I think the guy's name was. Poor guy. That was brutal matchmaking for Jesse Murray. But unfortunately, right, Caio Borralho just had a few decisions off the rep, and it kind of made people think like, man, maybe this guy isn't as fun as we all thought. Gazi Omar Gadziev gets the win there. That was a fight where, I wasn't really blown away by what I saw, but in any case, I thought that he's a smart guy. He shows that fighting nerds mentality, right? He takes the easiest method of victory when he can. But it was starting to get to him, right? He went out there and he went against Armen Petrosyan, got the win in that fight. Difficult fight, measured fight, fought a good performance, fought a savvy fight there. It was a close fight, but gets the win, unanimous decision, no fault there. Makhmud big, awkward guy, a guy who's been putting in a lot of work on his wrestling and his grappling. I think people give him a lot of shit for that fight. But then you look at the fact that Makhmud went out there and attempted like 13 or 14 takedowns in his next fight. The guy really has been putting in work on the wrestling and grappling front. I think he deserves some credit and respect for that because he got audited by GM3, which I predicted before the fight. So in any case, you look at the last one out, Caio Borralho said, I'm going to make a point of finishing this guy. I will finish. And Michal Oleksiejczyk's been around the UFC for a long time. He's not a great grappler, but he's a dangerous striker. He's a pressure forward guy. He's a guy a lot of people don't want to be trading with. And Caio Borralho, I thought, approached that beautifully. He got the big win, and he really validated the UFC's faith in him, right? Goes out there. They said, man, it's not enough to get the wins. You're doing a good job. All unanimous decisions, right? Not split decisions, not leaving it to chance, but we really want to see you close the show here. Goes out there against a seasoned guy, gets the win, gets the finish. So now he's getting a fight against a guy who's got some prominence, right? A guy who was just a headliner for the UFC in Abus Magomedov and a guy that fought the champion. But what did we learn about him in that fight? Maybe he didn't have what they thought he had, right? They tried to fast track him. I had compared him at the time to Yuri. When does a guy go from fighting, once or twice in the organization to in a potential title eliminator? It's not very common, right? Yuri Prochazka had a handful of fights before he's in a title fight. It doesn't happen very often in the UFC. Izzy had, I think, 4 or 5 or 6, right? It's like most of the time you really got to earn it. You got to get a couple solid wins underneath your belt. And Abus Magomedov got shot right up to the top. He got a big opportunity and he got exposed a little bit. So he trains with good guys, right? He's got the wrestling shoes on Instagram. I did a little bit of stalking in that regard, right? I looked at what he's doing. But Caio Borralho is a smart guy. He's a very savvy striker, I think, defensively in the early going. I think he's going to do what he needs to do to get this guy tired. I think he's going to try and grab a hold of him. I think he's going to try and push him into the fence. I think he's going to use his head positioning. I think he's going to punch him in the body. I think he's going to knee him in the body. And I think he's going to try and wear on this guy for the first round. We saw in that last fight, it wasn't a first round finish. It's a second round finish. He's not a guy who's going to go out there and force it. But I think that Abus Magomedov is a guy, unfortunately, based on what we've seen so far, he can always change my impression this weekend. But what we've seen so far is that if you push him, if you pressure him, if you don't go down early, if you don't give it up easy, and if you don't give up easy takedowns, which I don't see Caio doing any of those things, then he can start to fall apart mentally. He can get hurt, cracked on the feet, and he can start to make bad decisions. And I honestly felt like Sean Strickland could have easily outgrappled him if he had decided to, because he was already broken in that fight by the time that Sean laid on the ground and pound. So he's making a pretty quick turn here to go fight in Sao Paulo against a guy that I think that the UFC would like to invest in. I think that this is a Caio Borralho spot, and I think he's going to finish Abus Magomedov in round 2 or 3. So give me Caio Borralho to get the win here. But admittedly, guys, saying off the rip, biased as shit. I don't think I've lost a bet on Caio on the money line at this point, and I've done very well betting his fights on the prop side of things as well. So for me, he's just been a very profitable fighter. And until I'm proven wrong, I think he's a very sound guy. I'm not going to give up on my read there. So jiu-jitsu, stop Brazilian hate. That's what we're looking to do. Shout out to everybody who's rocking with us in the chat, guys. Want to say, seeing some very sharp names, some Patreon supporters. Want to shout out specifically everybody who's rocking with us on Patreon. Thank you guys for the support. It means the world. I did send out days ago the debutante report, the social media A-side report, and the previous performance in odds range, a bunch of documents that are trying to help you get prepared, whether you're with me or against me on any one play. It's a lot of research and work that goes into it to try and help see other people win. So thank you to everybody who's rocking with us.